So this is all word problems, and I know how excited everybody always is about word problems. They give some steps here. I'm just gonna I'm gonna make this in my own words. First thing I'm always gonna say, if possible, draw a picture. The picture can make everything make so much more sense. Then from the picture, write an equation. If you just jump right into the equation, sometimes it just doesn't work right. So you want to have the picture help you make sense of it, and then write the equation. Then you're going to just solve it, and then make sure that it makes sense. Sometimes you end up with like the length equals a negative number. That is not possible. And sometimes you can think through that by deciding what the domain is, what are the acceptable values to begin with. And then this last one says give answers in a sentence. That's to make sure you're answering the question. So a lot of times in AP and IB, if you answer in a sentence, you can make sure that you're actually answering the question that is asked. So this just has one actual problem. So this says a rectangle. So I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle. The length is 3 centimeters longer than the width. So notice the length is in terms of the width. So I'm just going to call the width W because I don't know what that width is. If the length is 3 more than that, it's like you start with the width and add 3 to the width to get the length. Its area is 42. Is means equals. How do you find if the area equals 42? How do you find area of a rectangle? It's the length times the width. So we replace area with its length times the width, and that equals 42. We can simplify our equation. Now we are left with a quadratic, degree 2, which means I want to get the equation equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 42 from both sides to get the right side equal to 0. I will always start by checking, can you factor it? What are the values that multiply to get 42? 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3 and 14, 6 and 7. So do any of these subtract to get 3? Unfortunately, no, it's not factorable. All right, so the second step that I would go to for this one, use your quadratic formula. Okay, so this is where our A is 1, B is 3, and C is 42. All right, ready? I'm going to sing for you. Get all excited. Now, this time instead of saying X equals, I'm going to start with W because that's our variable. W equals opposite of B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Okay, now we want to simplify this. The first thing I always notice, I look for my negatives. Because if I'm going to subtract a negative here, this minus will make that negative a plus when you get done. So I just do that step right away. All right, so if I take 4 times 42 and then add 9, I get 177 over 2. This is where you're going to want a calculator. I would take negative 3. Let me write it out this way. I'm going to do 2 equal signs. Negative 3 plus the square root of 177 divided by 2. And you plug all that into the calculator. I get 5.15. If I do -3 minus the square root of 177 divided by 2, I get approximately -8.15. Okay, so let's think about this. What does W represent? W is our width. So it makes absolutely no sense to have a negative width. That means my only feasible answer to this is when my W is 5.15. Now, this is where I always go back. The question says, find the width of the rectangle. Did we find the width? Yes. And I'm not going to write a sentence. I would say the width of the rectangle equals 5.15 centimeters. And that does answer the question.